education is key, whatever level you decide you go to. Um, if you're always learning, you're a life like I consider myself a lifelong learner. I'll never know everything, and there's always an opportunity to learn more. Whether that's going back and taking a couple courses and on stuff that you just want to, refresh your mind on. Like obviously, marketing and social media have changed the way people market over the past 20 years. So, and there's always new stuff coming out. So, for us, it's about how do we continue to tap into what these new things are. As I start to age, most of my user base is going to stay the student level. So how do we tap into that knowledge consistently so that we're providing value? And I think it really comes down to us. It's really about, we want to help you get education, right? And pay for that education. And we want to make sure we do it right.
Jonathan, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Jonathan, you came in through our connections over at Innovation Factory, but I've been wanting to have you on for a different reason. Your name's been thrown up a lot all over LinkedIn lately. You have a lot of key supporters for your project.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. It's LinkedIn's been a lot of fun. It's been a great resource for us. And just, it's been a great marketing platform. A lot of people are asking questions and we're just able to kind of, get our information out and let people know what we're doing. And it's starting to kind of spread like wildfire, which is amazing.
Yeah. Your name came up especially on, I think the MD of Forum Ventures, the newly minted Forum Ventures, threw out a challenge a couple of weeks ago. They said, by the end of the week, we want to fund a startup with $100,000. I think it's a Canadian startup with $100,000, and give it to them by the end of the week. Some kind of weird investment challenge, among the investor community to get, to write checks and get funding out there. And he asked the LinkedIn community, is like, who do you recommend gets this? And I was so shocked that you didn't win this because through the comments was Jonathan from Paid, everyone was tagging you. And that's, I'm like, who's this guy from Paid? What's this startup and what's going on? And I got a chance to jump into it. So right off the bat, Paid looks, as a value prop, amazing. But can you introduce us to Paid? What is it and why are you doing it?
Yeah, so Paid is basically a savings mechanism for helping, students, graduates, families, save and pay for education, to put it very simply. And, this kind of came about because I've been in the, post-secondary industry for over 15 years, basically, as a student leader, got into the student health insurance industry. And we created a program called Real Campus. And it was through Real Campus that we saw that, financial stress in post-secondary students is, number one or number two of their major stressors. So when we went out to kind of investigate who we could partner with to help alleviate this stress, we really couldn't find anybody. And so that kind of dawned on me as like, well, maybe there's an opportunity here. And that's how Paid was born. It was born to specifically help students pay off their student debt or save for their education so that when they graduate, they're not behind and they're not living paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely. I mean, student debt has become more than a buzzword, more like very top of mind in recent years, especially since the student debt calculator has come out, and you can both see the U.S. and Canadian debt, and you can watch it per second. It just shoots up, just interest and new loans. Like you just see it going up and up and up, and it's kind of phenomenal that this type of debt exists in North America. Student loan debt is one of the only few forms of debt that can't be that is immune from debt relief, immune from bankruptcy. It is also one of the most substantial forms of debt you can get into, and also at such a young age with very little credit or any kind of way to paying back. And there's this whole propped up industry that exists around student debt and higher ed. That I think we're seeing, especially during COVID, has like shown the gaps in. Higher education has, the the ROI of higher education has been going steadily downwards in the last 40 years, while as the cost of tuition has gone steadily upwards. In the beginning, well, not in the beginning, but 40 years ago, $5,000 for an average college diploma in the United States will give you about an extra $3 million on average more in income than someone that had a high school diploma. And that ROI has steadily gone down. And people have been thinking about it. It's like, is higher ed over? Is the college experience over? Because it's no longer worth it. I think that's a very challenging question, because universities, especially in Canada, we're surrounded by these great institutions that have great programming, not just academic, but they just provide so much support. The way I kind of talk about it now, having taught within the environment, having spent most of my 20s going through that environment, not just in undergrad, but also going through incubators and accelerators for my third startup, and then later on teaching, is that universities are a great club where you can go to and gain a lot of experience from, whether you want to start a company or start a newspaper, get into journalism. There's so many different problems you can solve. One of the best definitions I've heard of them is that literally the meaning of university is universal city, right? Yeah. And it's a great way. It's a test environment if you want to ever launch an idea. It's actually one of the greatest places for an entrepreneur to be in, because you can, in a micro environment, test ideas and see how they perform, and be surrounded by high value people that are pre-selected because they're high value people. And it sucks that such a experience has now been commercialized to the point where it's overly fished, it's overly been succumbed to the financial industry. So now everyone equates higher education to debt and getting into debt. And the ROI is getting out of it as fast as possible, going through the experience as fast as possible, getting that job and paying it off, and not really experiencing it. So talking about student debt, I think, is very top of mind right now. So how do you think about student debt? How do you think about debt for yourself?
I think with student debt, I struggled with student debt out of post-secondary, to be honest. And I went through my own trials and tribulations trying to, get it paid off. You look at certain city centers and the cost of living. And so when students leave school or they graduate, they get a job. That job could be downtown Toronto, and you're getting paid maybe $40,000 a year. You've got to pay anywhere from $1,000, around $1,000 on average to just, live somewhere. And then you add on the 300 plus that you got to pay on your student debt, plus your food, and you want to live, right? You want to be able to experience life at the same time. Well, it's really hard to do, right? You can't, basically have to say, okay, I'm just going to go home and I'm going to go to work, come home, sit, read, watch a movie, and that's it. That's all I can do. I can't do anything outside of that. I can't go out and have a real life or a relationship or friends, because if I do that, it's going to cost me more than I'm making at my job. So I think, when you look at that experience that I had, I saw the need for it right away.
So let's go for the counterpoint, because there's this conservative argument that the point of being a young adult is to take on not take on debt, but take on challenge. And you're sacrificing and taking on this debt by borrowing from your future to invest in your now, to go into an education now that's going to catalyze your future. And then the learning to pay it back and actually effectively paying it back is a way of graduating from that experience, right? Showing that you're a fiscally responsible person. And I think that's pretty bogus, because a lot of people who get out of it fast have a lot of support. It's not an equal agenda for different people. Different amounts means different things. $100 and $1,000 means completely different. It can buy a lot more, can go a lot, can be stretched a lot further. So, I mean, talking about, your experiences with that and stuff, like most people, especially most young people, first experience debt mostly because of universities. That you're also not just a student experience, but also the first time you get a credit card is generally within the university. Someone will sign you up, right? What is this obsession with young adults and debt? Why do we burden young people with debt? Have you ever looked into the thoughts behind that?
I think it's kind of generational, and it's in two facets, in the sense that, if you do have the support mechanisms, you have parents that want you to go through post-secondary. They want you to get that education. So that's one. But then you have the other one where maybe you're from a family that never got a post-secondary education. So there's a little bit of pressure on you to do it because they never did it, right? It's kind of like the athletic analogy where, you were an athlete, but you didn't really get to the NHL, but then you have a kid and you're pushing that kid to get to the NHL. You're trying to kind of live vicariously through them by pushing them to do something that they might not even really want to do. But that's what they've been kind of born to do or been raised to do. And I think that's why we see, people getting that post-secondary education is because, either they're basically trained to go do it. And society has been saying, you need that education to be successful. But I think, we're seeing a little bit of a shift with a lot of young entrepreneurs, either going to post-secondary for a little bit or not even going to post-secondary and being able to do some incredible things because they're thinking outside the box. And when we look at specifically, high school and kids coming from high school, they're not being taught financial literacy. It's finally that they've decided to make a program for that for students starting in grade 9, which I think will hopefully, teaching them about mortgages, teaching them about car payments and compound interest and all that stuff so that they know what they're getting themselves into. They're not just going to think that, okay, I have to get a car because that's what, everybody else is doing. I should go get one, and put themselves in a risky situation that gets them in debt that they might not really know about. So then they're scrambling, just trying to continue to pay it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think society does a really good job of like conditioning people to think a certain way. And generally, a lot of people who stand out in society are the ones that go against the grain, tries to figure out a new way of doing it. But people always look at them weird. Like if you don't have that nice car, if like everyone around you is driving a brand new car and, you have like an older, more beat up one, but one that you're paid off completely, you're the weirdo. It's like, why aren't you, you can afford this. Why aren't you doing it? Why are you being cheap? Like there's this huge, I guess, counter wave of trying to be fiscally responsible in a weird way. And one of the things I love is nowadays, we have access to more information. Like you see like that video of like Jeff Bezos in like an old Camry. And the reporter's like, you're a billionaire. Why are you in this Camry? And he's trying to explain, it's like, yeah, well, I still got expenses. I got things to do. And like, this allows me to minimize my expenditure and be able to do more. So, I mean, let's talk about what debt does to students, like in their early ages, right? They, like you said, like you have to now double think about the experience you take on, about where where you spend your time. It takes away from things. You've borrowed from your future. Well, it's one of the best definitions I've heard about debt is you're borrowing from your future. And that has to be paid back eventually. So going back to like paying off debt, like your website, it talks about how Canadians carry $30 billion worth of debt. How is that generally financed or like facilitated? You said in the website, you also mentioned it takes about 15 years for the average family to pay that off. Now, how did that, have you done, is there any case studies on this? It's like, how do people go through this life cycle of paying off debt?
Yeah. So with regards to that, most of it comes from whether it's provincial loans, like, that's the one thing that Canada does very well is we have a great provincial loan program. So whether in Ontario or Alberta or BC, but there's also individuals that take out line of credits through banks as well, right? So they're lower interest loans, but they're still taking out anywhere from, $10,000 to $15,000 to pay for their education. And I think the other thing too is when people go to post-secondary, they don't necessarily know all of the expenses that they're probably going to have. They say, okay, well, the average tuition is $6,000. Okay, perfect. I can afford that. But then you add in the cost of living, right? And then you add in, okay, am I going to have some fun while I'm at school, which everybody should, right? Everybody should experience, post-secondary as, their predecessors experienced it, right? Because who wants to go to school just to kind of just head down, not make any relationships? Because I know for myself, I've got tons of incredible relationships through post-secondary educations that continue to date and that will last a lifetime, right? And I think that's what it's all about. So when we look at the loan scenario, you just see these individuals struggle, and it's on average 10 to 15 years, right? And what a lot of people don't know is on that average $30,000, the interest over those 10 to 15 years ends up being an additional $10,000, right? So if you have if you got that $30,000 loan, by the time you pay it off, it's actually a $40,000 loan. And I don't think a lot of individuals or students think about it that way, right? If they could realize how to compound that interest and what it would actually cost them to take it out, they might reconsider whether they would do that or not, or they would try to find a different way, or they might say, you know what, I won't go to school this year. I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to work, earn enough money so that I can pay for it, right? Instead of having to take out loans.
What is your take on this hustle culture behind it, right? Like true hustlers will figure out a way to pay for it or pay it back. Because I'm a little biased because I didn't actually take off my student loans. I actually figured a way to pay for it. So just a quick throwback. I literally had a OSAP consultancy in university where people would come to me and pay me like $50 to figure out how to get them loans, even though I never took a loan myself. Yeah. And to be honest, the way I did this was at 17, I randomly, when I first started the university, I went in and talked to what I found. It turned out to be this. So our campus had about 4 people that worked in the loan office. These four middle-aged women, and they're always there day in, day out. They were the administrative staff, and only one of them really cared about their job. Like if you went in, if you had a chance to stand in line and get her, she would go out of the way to make sure you were taken care of. And for whatever reason, I somehow got her direct phone line. And so like whenever I called in, she would be the one to pick up instead of going to the general line. And literally, my first consultancy was me utilizing this particular resource that I had, right? This unfair advantage, and getting people who are struggling to figure out how to get their loans and stuff. I'm like, yo, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. And I was literally get paid to do this. And university being this hustle culture, this place for entrepreneurs, and you being a founder, I'd love to hear about your experience. There's all these different ways to to capitalize, not just work or have a job. I did that too. I was a bartender on campus, but I used that as a way to meet people and make relationships, which I then utilize to throw like a house party. Make a few grand there. Our campus is surrounded by these really nice houses, which foreign international students would stay in, and they were bored. I would convince them to allow me to throw a party for them because I was on different clubs, different associations. I'm like, yo, this would be great. They would give the house. I would get some people to provide the booze, and literally like $20 a ticket, $30 a ticket for people to get in. You can raise like $1,000, $2,000, in a night from a party. And I realized running experiences on campus is like a self-fulfilling thing. People know you, people get it, and you can utilize this. And that was where my hustle mentality was really refined. I was able to experiment on different ideas and test it out because you have a large array of people around the same age, same kind of mindset that you can test out to a very coordinated target market. Right, this is before social media graphing was capable, right? It allowed me to hustle and to figure out pay this off. And the question always became is why do more people don't try to hustle? Why do they get jobs? And I always wondered about this. And there's a lot of research about this. Only 10% of the population naturally gravitate towards entrepreneurship and starting things for themselves, whereas the remainder generally want to join something and achieve some kind of stability off this. So wrapping this back into your experience as a founder and starting this, at what point did you take this problem and want to spin it out into a startup?
It was literally, I'd say about 2 years ago, is when it kind of all came together and the idea was there. And, I was looking at my previous job, very successful, in the insurance industry. Our company was getting ready to sell. So I think it was that, you see a little bit of a culture change when companies are looking to be acquired, they tighten down the hatchets a little bit. Everything becomes a little bit less about culture and more about how do we get the most money out of what we're trying to sell right now. And so it was kind of that perfect storm. So this idea happened to come up, and then this change started to happen. So it was almost, serendipitous in the sense that I thought, okay, this is something that I need to really look at and pursue. And I think when you talk about, why only 10% of people are really looking at being entrepreneurs, is because I think they're problem solvers, right? They look at the world differently. I grew up in a family-run business, so I kind of was able to see that. As a manufacturing business, so a sign company, and being in the back shop, doing basically every job there was in that shop, we were able to do and get to experience. And I remember one time I was looking at the production line and how we were doing certain things. And I was just sitting back watching a crew do this. And I went up to the project manager. I said, if you give me 2 less guys, because they were getting behind on the project, you give me 2 less guys and you let me set this up properly, I'll have it done ahead of time. And they laughed at me. I said, but if I do this, then you got to give me a raise. And they just laughed and said, there's no way you're going to do it. And so they said, okay. I took the challenge. We got it done ahead of time with less people because we properly set it up. And so I think it's, looking at just being aware of your situation, looking at certain things in a different way, identifying problems and trying to solve them. I think, teaching our kids that if you have a problem, don't solve it for them. Let them solve it. I know with my kids, they'll ask me to do something like open up a jar. Yeah, I can open up a jar of pickles, no problem. But if they see me struggle a little bit with it, and they see that I'm having a bit of a hard time, but then I get it, well, that's going to show them that it doesn't come easy to me. I have to work at it and I have to keep trying. And I think if we teach our kids that it's not about, it's not about the quick fix. It's not about, hey, this is easy. If it's not easy for you, find something else, right? It's stick with it, find the solution and figure out a way to kind of move forward. So I think that's really what it comes down to, is why there's only 10%. We're not training our kids, our individuals, to think outside the box or to be creative.
Have you ever heard of the Marshmallow Test when it comes to children and success?
No, I haven't.
So there was this great test that was done. It's like one of the great indicators of success is not intelligence, but the ability to stand off, the ability to push away gratification or rewards. So the Marshmallow Test, especially in children, is a great indicator of future success, because it literally is saying, going to a child and said, hey, do you want 1 marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows later, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes later? And the idea is that the children who say, I'll wait and get 2, they are ability to invest. They understand that, playing with time, they'll get more, and by being patient and putting away their own feelings, they can get ahead. And the kids who say now, because one, they don't trust you or trust the adult, or are just gluttonous, they are more prone to act on the current now, what they really want right at the moment, and work on a moment basis, are very unlikely to invest for the future. And this was a weird test because these are generally kids around 6 or 7 that go through this test, and that's not a lot of time to get socialized or to be taught these kind of things. And it's weird that it's a state that kind of naturally comes to be. And it seems to me that the kind of like the job of a parent is to make, if you want your kids to be really successful, is to figure out how to make them more patient with themselves and how to invest in skills or in things that yield the future, right? And that's why
I completely agree.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
a lot of entrepreneurs.
With that.
A lot of entrepreneurs come from a family of entrepreneurs. They got to see the fruits of yielding future results. So coming back to paid and the mission here, let's talk about the mechanics of how we actually help people pay back loans and their debts faster. How does this app, how does utilize, does it utilize any particular concepts? Does it gamify or hack you in a way to make you more pliable to get out of your situation? It's more information based. What does Paid do?
Well, what Paid does is we try to create like savings on autopilot, to be, blunt. And how we do that is by basically you sign up a payment card. There's similar products that are out there that we compete with that are they're all targeted to either a credit card or they're targeted to an account. What we do is we layer that on top of what you already have. We're not saying you need to sign up and create an account with us and have a credit card with us. We're saying you already have credit cards, you already have accounts. Let's utilize those, right? So all it is it's a card-based program where they sign up their payment cards. And what we do is we help them round up those purchases. So we take the pennies out of their account and put it into an investment account. We help them earn cash back based on their spending habits. So what we get to do is we get to see all the transactions that are happening where our customers are spending. So we go to those merchants and partner with them so that we're providing more value to our user base. And then you invest those funds through Questrade right now. And the idea is if you're in school, you can put it in a TFSA and allow you to do some type of trading with it if you want, or put an RESP, whatever you're comfortable with. And it's up to Questrade and us to educate you on what those savings mechanisms are. And then the big thing is getting, friends and family to do the exact same thing, but that money goes towards your education, right? And what's cool about this is that it's basically crowdsourcing. So think Facebook. You're trying to create your social circle. And instead of it being about uploading photos and staying connected that way, it's about staying connected on the education piece and paying off that education. So what's great for parents is that they're not giving you these huge lump sums. It's small microtransactions. So these small little bits that are continually adding up, right? It's like the old day, the piggy jar, like the piggy bank, right? And we're doing that digitally and easily and automatically. And that's how we help save. And then the other thing that we do is when, students graduate, we want to partner with their employers because, RRSP matching programs are sometimes inaccessible to some businesses. But with our platform, they can do it. And we help offset the cost of it through our own corporate matching program. So what's cool is, they sign up their own corporate cards and we help them save based on their spend as well. So now instead of it being straight out of your profits, well, we're looking at, okay, well, we've helped you earn, $10,000 of cash back to put towards your employees. Why wouldn't you want to do that? It creates a different mechanism for them to save. It creates more peace of mind, allows them to get away from living paycheck to paycheck. But it also gives the employee the control of the money. Right? With standard RSP matching programs, it has to go to a specific institution. It has to be a specific amount, and you can't touch it, right? From an employee standpoint, I might just need an extra couple bucks for rent, right? And that today will reduce more stress than me trying to save for that RSP that I know is down the road. I know it's important. But today, I'm stressed about paying rent. I'm not stressed about saving for my future. So it's trying to really balance that from an institutional standpoint and from a corporate standpoint. So to help those individuals reduce their stress, because then if you can do that, they're going to be more productive at work. They're going to be more present at work, which is kind of what you want to do. And we want to help individuals save. Student debt doesn't end when you graduate. That's when it begins. So how can we help continue that journey and make it valuable for our user base?
This is a great Instagram post that I've etched to my mind. It's from an account called Business Magnets. And it says $10,000 saved in the year 2000 would be worth less than $6,000 right now. But $10,000 invested in the year 2000 would be worth like $60,000 plus by now. and the idea being like invest versus saving, right? Especially for anyone from the 90s generation, it was like bar down into your mind, save, 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 save,
Yeah.
save. The
Yeah.
saving part was like always primary. It's like once you have money, X money saved up, you can go out and do all these things. But it's crazy to think about all those, what was considered good financial advice then, save that money is actually detrimental because the value of money is going down due to inflation. We're now living on this reality where the Canadian Fed has printed out $1 trillion into the economy, and in the U.S. It's about $4 trillion has gone into the economy, mostly through loans and financing cheap debt, and the inflation curve of that has not hit yet. We know in the next few years, at least next 4 years, the inflation curve is going to start hitting us, and it's going to start hitting that. The cost of living is going to go up, the cost of buying is going to go down, and in certain places, we're already feeling this squeeze. So when it comes to saving versus invest, right? One of the most key, I think, reasons why these fintech tools like yourself is so important is to facilitate savings into investings. So yes, you're saving, you're taking this and putting it aside, but that is not just sitting in like a savings account that's paying you 0.2% like a normal bank would, right? I think banks pay like 0.25% interest, which is nothing. Even at 3% interest, you're losing money there. 3% inflation. So with inflation, hitting at our doors and coming in, what is your take on this? Like, where does money saved from a paid go? Where does it sit?
So it sits right now with Questrade. So that's where all the savings will go, and it's up to the user to decide what mechanism is the best for them through Questrade's platform. And they've got lots of different options available, RSPs. So they handle all that program and all the tax implications and all that fun stuff. That's the tax stuff's beyond my knowledge. And it's really about, trying to educate the user on how these investment opportunities work, right? And it's incrementally, so you don't feel like you're out. Like, look at the current situation with RESPs and parents. When do they typically pay it? Near the end of the year. How do they pay it? One big chunk. They try to maximize it or put however much they can on it. But what if they used our program and they could incrementally save for it, where you don't see that big chunk? Because that's the psychology aspect of it. Is it easier to save a little bits along the way or put that big chunk? And from my standpoint, I see that big chunk and be like, oh man, I could really use that somewhere else. Where if I see a couple bucks here or there, I'm like, oh, that's not a big deal, right? And so that's what we're trying to help our users is understand the psychology of those big lump sums. Is it can be, stressful for them to do those things. And what we found is through some of the transactional data that we have is that you can actually fund your RSP quicker and be able to continue on the program and put it into other savings mechanisms, whether it's tax-free savings accounts. So it's really understanding that there's different avenues to put money and really educating, the user on what those avenues are and when is it a right time to put it in certain avenues. And then it's also understanding what that risk is. What is their risk tolerance, right? Because investing it can be great. It can also really suck, right? Because if you put it in the wrong place, you lose money. But if you're smart, you can make a lot of money, right? So you have to really educate yourself on that. And that's what we want to provide is that literacy platform that shows them where they can make that money.
Absolutely. One of the biggest game changers in my investing strategy has been like these auto traders like Wealthsimple, and over time, adjusted for a risk basis, they actually outperform self-managed funds. And I've seen the incredible benefits of this, especially during COVID. Like my investment accounts are down, but Wealthsimple is holding pretty strong. These electronically traded funds, right? That they put their money into. You put your money into for them. It's been phenomenal, right? This idea that it can invest for you using some kind of intelligence. And I look back at my early investing career. When I first started investing into stocks, when you're younger, you think you can tolerate as much risk as you want because your life is just beginning. So making like a big bet and winning big means it can change your whole life. Let's do that. But if I lose, whatever, I have rest of my life to recover, or I have years to recover. And I remember one of the ways I realized that investing was gambling was when I tried to make a short play on BlackBerry back in the day when they first started to come out with a new phone and try to engage. I was trying to like short sell it and do all this fancy stuff and burned a bunch of capital, which I realized if I didn't do that, and a week later, if I had put it into Netflix, when that main first quarterly report came out, and saw their stock like go up 8 times over in a period of like 3-4 months, man, that would have been a way bigger killing. So like investing, absolutely, like picking the right company and all this, you need to figure out and have a strategy. But I think one of the key proponents of investing and saving is the mental strategy behind it, the mental muscle that requires of thinking about this. Being as a disciplined investor, you're not just doing this as like a get rich quick scheme or like a Hail Mary throw. No, it's a legitimate strategy that you have to do, that you're paving the way for your future. Right. And electronically traded funds are one of the key ways, I think, the easiest way to get into these things. There's another bank that I really like is I switched over to is Tangerine. And Tangerine, the bank account, one of the things it does is it has something called money rules. It allows you to program money, almost like what crypto has been promising. This is the first bank that allows you to do this. You can say, if this happens, do this, right? Every time I spend money, take 25 cents and put it into savings. Every time, I make a bill payment, X amount goes in savings. Every time I buy some alcohol, put some money to savings, right? If I have money for this, I get money to save. And these money rules is a game changer because it automates the habits that you want to form, right? It just makes it operate. So technology can do this, but on the left side, there's been a lot of blowback for fintech companies on how the effects it has on its users. So, for example, like the insurance industry, they've been doing this thing where it's like put our app on your phone, let us know how you drive, and we'll reward you with lower rates. Right. But one of the primary problems with that is that they're not getting the full information, the full story. Someone slams the brakes in front of you and you slam your brakes and your insurance app is on. They're going to think you're a bad driver, regardless of the situation, regardless of the fact that you probably saved someone's life by doing that. You get dinged. And what it looks like is that fintech companies more and more, what they're actually doing is building ecosystems around them of their users, rewarding users for giving them data and information of their activity, and return they give them some kind of benefits. And it seems like fintech companies are building their own like ecosystems of users around them, depending on what type of behaviors they want or what kind of KPIs. So it's looking at that kind of perspective with paid. It's almost like you are telling your users, hey, join our ecosystem, give us feedback, give us analytics about how you spend money, how you operate. We will give you tools to better save and to better operate. And in return, the positive is that you will pay off your debt faster. Is that a fair assessment of looking at this?
That's a fair assessment. Whether it's paying off your debt or whether it's saving for education. Like I think we try to tie it all in around education because I think, education is key. Whatever level you decide you go to, if you're always learning, you're a lifelong. Like I consider myself a lifelong learner. I'll never know everything, and there's always an opportunity to learn more.
Yeah.
Whether that's going back and taking a couple courses and on stuff that you just want to, refresh your mind on. Like obviously marketing and social media have changed the way people market over the past 20 years. So, and there's always new stuff coming out. So for us, it's about how do we continue to tap into what these new things are? As I start to age, most of my user base is going to stay the student level. So how do we tap into that knowledge consistently so that we're providing value. And I think it really comes down to us. It's really about, we want to help you get education, right? And pay for that education. And we want to make sure we do it right. Where in a situation where the user wins, the local businesses win, everybody kind of wins. It's create this scenario where it's not about greed. It's not about how much money can we profit. It's about how many, can we create an actual social change? Can we actually help alleviate the student debt crisis? And that's really what our business is about.
John, what school did you go to?
I went to Fanshawe College.
Okay. Where's that by?
So in London, Ontario. So took some courses at Western. I actually played volleyball. So I got recruited out to play at the University of Saskatchewan, did a year there. It was tough to leave family and friends, come back, take some courses at Western, and decided, you know what? University just wasn't for me. I wasn't the, sit in the lectures, write the papers. I was more of that hands-on learner. And once I got to college, I just I loved it. I loved the education aspect of being able to apply all the learnings that we're doing. And, it really worked well for my learning style. And so I got to play some volleyball. Well, I like to say that, I went to play volleyball and I got an education while I was at it. And, that's what I loved about it. Sports gave me an opportunity to learn.
Okay. So, that being said, would you, if you're going back and having to do it all over again, would you go purely just for the college experience? Would you pay for that kind of experience? And do you think it's worth it?
To be honest, I probably wouldn't change much. And I think that's the struggle that a lot of these students have, is that there's such a focus or a force to focus on what you're going to do. Right? You're 15 years old and you're being told, what are you going to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
You've only lived 15. You've lived 15% of your life. You haven't really lived. You don't know what you really like and what you don't like and what you really want to be. So I think we force children to pick what they want to be instead of letting them figure it out. And I think there needs to be more, and this is a personal opinion, but I think there needs to be a little bit more experiential learning so that they can understand and dabble a little bit more over here and dabble over here. And, it's not just, you're going to be strictly sciences. You're going to be strictly business, right? It's let them learn what makes sense. Because when I went to U of S, I was kind of half kinesiology, half business. I found the business side came naturally. I had to work harder on the kinesiology side, but I found that I loved the business side more. So that's the road I kind of took, business and marketing. So,
yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. That experience is so fundamental to how you move forward in life, and the basis of your understanding of reality is that you can't ask to replicate it, or you can't ask to take that away. So moving forward to your kids, would you want them to pursue a higher education degree? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think it's would you say that it's a requirement for them?
I think for them, it really comes down to, I think education is changing. I think the way we facilitate education and how we learn is changing rapidly. So it's kind of hard to say whether those institutions could even be around in the next 15 years, right? Or what that institution looks like could be completely different than what we see today. I believe in education, and I believe in learning. So I would love for them to. I would never force them to do anything they don't want to do, and I think that's really the message that I try to send, is that try things, right? When I'm a sports guy, I love sports. I want my kids to try every sport. And what sport do you like? Go with it, right? I'm not going to force you to be a volleyball player because I was. You want to play hockey, go play hockey. It's really up to you, but don't be put in the situation where you don't try something because somebody else, because I didn't do it, right? I want them to experience things so that they can grow. And they'll learn what they like and what they don't like. It's not for me to tell them. It's for them to figure out.
Yeah. I mean, one of the crazy things I've seen is like how esports is disrupting, is
Yeah.
merging with like is education as well. Because
Yep.
in campus environments, just like we have sports teams, we now have esports teams.
Yeah.
This campus is building entire environments to have like professional esports players and things like that. So absolutely, everything's in flux and changing. That being said, what do you think are the changes that post-secondary education systems need, like colleges and campuses? Because now COVID has shown that we can do all this stuff remotely and virtually, and with the rise of the internet of everything, application of everything, is that we see more stuff available online, right? Like universities used to have this business model of like, okay, we're going to bring in the best researchers, provide them the biggest facilities, create all this research, facilitate the propagation of that research out there, and use that to be like, look how smart we are, look how much knowledge we have. Put up walls around the knowledge and be like, cool, you want to come in and learn from this and become part of this? $5,000, $10,000, right? It's crazy amounts of capital. But YouTube happened. And it turns out Virginia Law School has their entire first-year law program on YouTube. Harvard has their entire first-year business courses on YouTube, right? Yale on YouTube, right? And one of the craziest things is that if you want knowledge now, you can now go and learn not from the best institution, but the best teacher at that institution for free, right? And this free model of education is really shaking things up, because it's changing the model of how we look at this, right? So if you can go out and learn for free, if knowledge is no longer been capped, well, then a whole bunch of new research, a whole bunch of new thinking, a whole bunch of new applications can come out of it. And that is even more valuable than the knowledge itself, right? So if we can facilitate the education of the youth, so they can learn, but they can also go out and apply of that, right? Being part of the application journey is just as valuable as putting a paywall on learning. And universities are becoming more and more of places to build companies. How about your experiences with these incubators? Have you been through a university incubator or a campus-linked incubator? I know you've recently come through Innovation Factory. That's how we got connected. Mm-hmm. How have this incubation environment been for you as an entrepreneur?
It's been great. You know what I mean? Just being able to tap into the resources and knowledge base that, I think for most entrepreneurs, you need to figure out what you're good at and what you're not good at. And that's one thing that I learned real quick is, okay, I'm good at these things. I'm not good at these things. So let's go find the people that are really good at these things and try and learn from them or get assistance and mentorship so that we can be successful, right? And I think it's the same thing with hiring a team. It's like, you're good here. I don't need to hire another person that's good in the same role. I need to find somebody that's different, right? That has different thought processes, different ways of going about things so that we can learn from each other and grow, right? If I had five, I would have probably better success with, 5 different people than, 5 of the same. So these, we're a part of the DMZ boot camp right now, and it's been fantastic. The learnings that we're getting, the mentorship, the access to individuals that we normally wouldn't have access to, and just the networking has been phenomenal. Some of the other businesses that are coming through are doing incredible things, and being able to help one another out I think is huge. One of the things that I say, I've got all the time in the world for founders learning about their business. If there's a way for me to help them, I will, right? And I think that's the mentality of a lot of the startups in Canada right now. It's like, how do we help each other, right? It's not about, these guys are doing really well, and there's no envy or jealousy around what people are doing. Everybody really wants to help each other succeed. And I think if we can kind of continue and maintain this, then, everybody's going to do well, right? It's a community, right? It's taking that community that you saw in post-secondary that we talked about, and it's broadening it. It's getting larger, right? You might be at U of T and had this great community to learn about creating a business, and now you're a part of an accelerator, or you're just in the city center learning from all these other startups that came from different accelerators, which is incredible to see.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of resources available now to entrepreneurs is pretty insane. I remember like 2013 when I tried to start my first tech company, and I knew nothing about tech. Very, very, very hard to get resources even online to find stuff out. Now it's like a dream. You can just everything's a Google search away. How's it been for you to launch an app? Are you a coder yourself? Are you familiar? Are you comfortable with coding, or has it been a journey to like understand what the requirements behind that is?
I am not a coder at all. I'm a business guy. I'm a marketer and sales guy, basically, and those are my strengths. I understand the development process. I understand how it works, building applications for the insurance company that I worked for, and so kind of understanding how to manage that outsourced experience is what I know. And because I don't know it, I have to lean on the experts, right? And so that's kind of what we did, was we outsourced our work, and I'm glad that we did, because COVID came, and that kind of, I think it put a halt to a lot of people, right? And a lot of businesses. We just had to just stop everything and wait for, what the next step was. So when I look at it in hindsight, it was the smart decision to outsource instead of hiring people, because then from a business owner's perspective, you want to make sure you can take care of those people, right? And I never want to hire somebody I can't pay. Right. So I think, being able to outsource, being able to stop and start, lean on experts that have built stuff before, having confidence in them, that really helped us kind of get to where we are today.
That's awesome. I love the idea of like non-technical people getting to, figuring out a problem and launching a technical product, because the amount of resources out here is so available. So kudos to you and your team. And especially for the supporters you have, because I've heard about you before I even met you, and that's always a great place to be, especially as a founder. Generally, it's the other way around, and you're desperately trying to get your solutions out there. So I love the idea behind Paid, helping people manage their student loans. Yeah, even though I never took out loans, even then my wife did, and having done a master's on top of an undergrad, you see the compound effects of loans and what happens there. And I love seeing startups geared around great problems. So, John, kudos to you, kudos to your team, kudos to Paid. Looking forward to seeing more about what you guys do and the problems you solve. So, thank you again for your time, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, perfect. Stick around. We'll do a quick debrief, but for everyone else, thank you.